And that's why you want to keep it watered consistently. That's one of your main culprits on blossom end rot is inconsistent watering. So I had someone ask me if there's any way he could rig up something to where he could tell his water levels in his tubs, in his wicking tubs and in his earth boxes. If he could tell the water level at a glance, that would be helpful. That way you know whether or not you need to water, and could be quite helpful. So what I suggested was, and I believe I saw it somewhere, I don't think it's my idea, but it's a pretty good idea. May have one drawback. I'll tell you the drawback, and then I'll tell you what I'm doing to check water levels and know whether or not to water. But what I suggested to him was to get some skewer sticks. They'd have to be about 15, 16 inches long or more. Put a cork, either a wine cork, fishing cork, something like that on the skewer, and a real small skewer, like 1/8 of an inch, something like that, really small. I've got a piece of bamboo here, but much smaller than that piece of bamboo, because that's gonna hit on the hose, I think. But put a float on the end of it, fill it up completely full where you're coming out the bottom, put a mark on it, that's full. Let it get empty if you want to, or just push it all the way down and then put a mark on it as to completely empty. And then it should conceivably float up and show you at a glance, walking by, the level of water in the water reservoir of your wicking tubs or your earth boxes. Either one of them should work on either one of them. The wicking tubs are going to have a longer fill tube. This fill tube is probably 14, 15 inches long, where the fill tube on the earth boxes it's probably at least 2 feet long, maybe 26 inches. So different size skewers. I looked for some, and I just couldn't find anything that I thought was long enough and that would do the job. But you do your own research, you may be able to come up with something. Now, the only drawback that I see to that is if you're using drip irrigation like I am here, I've got drip tubing and an emitter running in each one of these pots. If you're using drip irrigation, then I'm afraid that stick would rub on this hose and maybe not give you a good, correct reading unless the cork was strong enough to really pick it up. So that could be. Now, if you're not using drip irrigation, I think it's a great idea, and I believe it would work really well. I don't see any downside to it. So that'd be a good way to do it. So let me show you what I'm doing this year to monitor the water levels in my self-watering containers. So basically I have this stick here. This is just a piece of bamboo, probably 3/8 of an inch, and I'm just putting it down in the hole, coming back out and seeing what I got. And most of the time I'm finding nothing on the end of it. They're just almost always, at the end of the day, bone dry. That may have 1/8 of an inch of water in it. I checked one a while ago, had about 1/2 an inch. I'll show you one that's actually got some water in it. Again, just almost nothing showing up on that stick. So let me come over here, and one reason it's sucking them dry is because, you look at that. That thing is loaded. That is a big beef, and it is absolutely covered in big tomatoes. And I'll check the water on this one. My cherries go all the way down, just almost nothing. So let me come over here to something that I believe has plenty of water in it, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this pepper is doing great. Got peppers all over it, nice peppers all over it. I mean, nice peppers all over it. That is a red Marconi. Go down, come back up, and I've got maybe 1/4 of an inch. Maybe 1/4 of an inch. Same way with these peppers. So I'm checking them every afternoon. And that's what I'm coming up with. Here are my cucumbers. Now these should probably have more water in them. They've got about 1/2 inch. I don't know whether you can see that or not. Let me put my hand behind it so it'll focus a little better. about a ½ inch. It's wet to about right there. About a ½ inch of water in these containers, and I watered yesterday afternoon. And I watered long enough with this drip system. I watered plenty long for them to get full. In fact, you can see down there how wet it is around the overflow. They get full when I water. Now these are beans, and they've got about a ½ inch. And if you wipe your stick off every time, then you get a much better reading. So that's the way I manually check the water in these wicking tubs and self-wicking containers that I use. That's all I'm using this year. I don't have any grow bags. Everything is a self-wicking type container. So the skewer, or a very skinny piece of bamboo, if you can find one, maybe an 1/8 of an inch, something very, very small, and long enough to go in the wicking tubs, which again is going to be, I can go down with this stick in the wicking tub. But as you can see, as I was putting it in there, I'm hitting my emitter down there. That's got about a ½ an inch. I'm hitting my emitter on the way down, so I have a feeling if I put those corks in there, unless I put the emitter real close to the lip here and not all the way down or very far down, I just think I would have a problem with it not registering correctly, with the emitters on those drip irrigation impeding the rod going up and down, dragging, putting just enough drag on it to where it would give you a false reading. So that's what I'm doing, is just using a stick to go down in there. One of these days I may try the cork on a stick and see how that works. But for right now, we're doing this, and we're just checking it every day. And I tell you what, these dudes are thirsty. But there again, look at that plant. That is a halcinator full of tomatoes back up in there. That's a snapper. That's a snapper. That's a big old red snapper tomato. That one's even bigger there. Big red snapper tomatoes. And but this one, as far as the amount of tomatoes on it, this dude right here, the big beef, that's the granddaddy of them all. It has got tomatoes on it. Now I'm having all sorts of trouble with blossom end rot, but I'm definitely getting tomatoes. I'm just fighting that blossom end rot, and that's why you want to keep it watered consistently. That's one of your main culprits on blossom end rot, is inconsistent watering. So, and I was inconsistent up to about 2 weeks ago when I started using the stick here and saw that they needed more water than I thought they needed. Last year I was watering about 3 times a week, and I just don't think that's enough, especially when you got some juicy water-filled tomatoes on your vines. They need water. Tomatoes love wet feet. They love water. Experiment, get you a wine cork or two and maybe a skewer somewhere, and just do some experimentation and see if that would work for you. If you want to have something that's very visual as you walk by it and can tell without any, without having to plunge a stick down in it. What I'm doing is more hands-on for sure, but that's what I'm doing. All right, I think that's it. We're gone.